we're going to look at how unemployment can affect income and therefore the income distribution in an economy. So we're going to assume that the economy is currently experiencing high unemployment. And therefore the analysis for an economy that is experiencing full unemployment would therefore just be the opposite of this case. So we're going to just go through what happens when there is high unemployment. But first of all, we're just going to see the definition of income. So income is the money paid in exchange for labor. And this is usually called earned income. The income can be also from interest on property or other things such as capital gains on property. So we're going to see the differences in income between people who have a job, who are living on the minimum wage, and those who don't have a job. So the average weekly income for those who don't have a job is around $240 to $290 a week. And this is on government welfare. And comparatively to other countries, this may seem a very reasonable standard of living. However, if you move towards a minimum wage income, if you work say 40 hours a week and you're earning around $15 per hour, you're going to make around $570 a week. And this is only on minimum wage terms. And this is a lot better, almost double what it is if you're getting paid by the government. And now if you're working on an average wage, and this is a startling $1,250 a week. And this is average full-time work. So if you're someone who has a full-time job, you're earning around $1,250 a week. And this is 2 times the minimum wage. And as we can see, the differences in income are very large between the minimum wage, government welfare payments, and therefore and consequently the average full-time worker. So now we can see that income is highly correlated with this idea of employment. So how would unemployment affect the income distribution? Well, first of all, you can see that if you become unemployed, you might move from average full-time work to the minimum wage, and therefore consequently move to government welfare. And you're earning about 4 times less than what you would work at a full-time job. And so the income distribution would become more skewed towards those who have jobs. So those with jobs earn the majority of the nation's income. So what this means to living standards, as a brief side note, is that once we become unemployed, we're gonna feel that the stresses of living or the cost of living may increase relative to our income, and therefore we might enjoy fewer goods and services, and therefore satisfy fewer needs and wants. That's detrimental to our living standards. But let's look at the distribution of income. The distribution of income becomes even more skewed to the 1%, and we've talked about the 1% versus the 99%. So think of this way according to businesses. When they hire labor, say you're a firm, you want to hire the best labor. So therefore you're going to want to hire the most skilled labor. And so when times are getting tough, when firms require to shed workers in order to maximize their profits, they're not going to fire the skilled labor. They're going to let go unskilled labor. And the unskilled labour force generally represent those on the minimum wage. Because as we can see in the market economy, wages reflect the skills involved or the qualifications involved with the job. So take for a working example, say you have a CEO versus a company janitor. Of course the CEO is getting paid, say, $1 million a year, and the janitor is only paid a honest $50,000 a year. And that's still a pretty good wage. But even though by cutting the CEO or firing the CEO may actually in fact decrease the labor costs of the firm, that's not going to do the firm any good because the CEO knows all the different skills, the finances, and all the different sale requirements for the firm. Whereas the janitor is a unskilled and somewhat dispensable labor unit. So firms will actually seek to cut costs there rather than at the top. And because they represent the lower income earners relative to, say, the CEOs or the CFOs, then the income distribution would therefore be skewed again to those who are already wealthy. So what this means is if we cross this out, making a little bit more space, we're going to see a more inequitable distribution of income. So a more inequitable distribution of income. This is because those on low skilled labours will find their jobs insecure. So those on the minimum wage or thereabouts around the minimum wage will tend to move towards government welfare as their jobs become less secure. However, those on high wages, even if they are let go, say CEOs, they will require, say, some sort of a payout to pay out their contract. And so this will also distort their income distribution to the positive side. So if you look at the Lorenz curve, for example, and the 45-degree line of equality, you're going to see a very much skewed population distribution to the left. So this distribution has a tail to the left. This means the richer earn a greater proportion of income when unemployment happens, as opposed to when there is employment. Therefore, the lower socioeconomic background society will experience a greater proportion of national income. So as you can see, when the unemployment rate is high, firms would tend to shed those unskilled labor who appear dispensable to the firm's overall goals. And so they will try to cut costs in that way. And that means they will move from an average full-time working salary to possibly a minimum wage salary as they try to negotiate their jobs. But if that fails, then they would have to revert back to government welfare, and therefore create a more inequitable distribution of income. So that's what occurs when high unemployment happens, possibly either due to low aggregate demand conditions or poor economic conditions overall. So the opposite would be true then. If the country or the nation is in full employment, then therefore the income distribution will move towards a more equitable distribution of income, as those on government welfare payments will tend to move firstly maybe to the minimum wage or even to full-time work. So that's how unemployment can affect the income distribution of an economy.